That didn't work. Neither to me.
There's nothing like a bit of live, is there? There's nothing.
That was the intro, folks.
Well, I heard it twice. Yeah, well, I heard half of it twice. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, another Gunners Town pub podcast with myself, Gavin. Joining me this evening is Mr. Dave Seeger, sir.
Good evening, Gablar.
Good evening, sir. And also joining is One Job Paul.
Fuck you, guys. Thanks.
Like I say, great to see you, boys. Game of two halves. I know it's often said, but the first half, I nearly fucking fell asleep.
Awful.
You would have been better off sleeping, to be honest.
Oh, and I even put my dinner off because my dinner was I've timed my dinner wrong. So I'm thinking I'm going to slowly cook the rest of my dinner so I don't miss any of the first. I've been better off eating my fucking dinner, wouldn't I? Do you know what I mean? It was just dreadful the first half. I don't know. I just don't know, really. I know, we've obviously squad players and players that we wouldn't expect in our first 11, really. But I was expecting a bit more the first half, really.
It was just Partey watched, to be honest. I mean, everything else was average. He was just awesome. He's just a Rolls Royce of a player. And I found myself, the worse we got, the more I was just watching him move around the pitch, his first touch, his vision, it was the only thing worth watching in the first half. With the exception of my old favourite, I have to say, Mo Elneny is playing well. He's such a great continuity player. He did nothing wrong the whole 90 minutes. Those two and Gabriel were the only highlights in the first half. Everything else was awful.
I agree. Partey's got amazing timing, hasn't he? He's just he stays on his feet. He knows when to, just to poke a foot in and completely just steal the ball of somebody. That he has a nickname as the octopus.
Yeah,
that's exactly what he was like. It was just.
Well, it's interesting because you don't want to, as an Arsenal fan, you don't want to be making that Vieira-esque comment or he's Vieira-like. But then you hear Martin Keown, who played with Vieira for 9 years, make it at half time. You think, fair enough. Better than us.
And who's going to argue with Keown at the end of the day? Do you know what I mean? I don't think anyone
would argue about his choice of opticians. Those glasses are horrendous.
Yeah, it just. I mean, I guess you're right, really, Dave. I mean, I was sort of the same, really. I mean, I thought the only other sort of bright spark in the first half for me was Saka.
Always,
but like I say, I mean, but some of the balls that Partey was spraying about. I mean, there was one. He literally just played the ball straight, and it just completely cut out the whole of their midfield and their centre backs. And if that's what we got to look forward to, I'm pretty excited, really.
It's like that expression, I think they used to say it about Ozil when he first came. It's like you feel like you're borrowing the ball from him. He's just lending it to you before you give it back to him. It's that, I'm lending you the ball and now I want it back. It's that borrowing the ball from him. It's like, and what was interesting, we'll talk about the match, but in the second half particularly, I could see already that certain players, particularly Gabriel, and certainly Bellerin, they're like, I've got the ball. What am I looking for? I'm looking for where Thomas Partey is. I'm looking for what space he's found himself. And that's obvious already. It's his first 4 games, and the teammates are looking for him. They're looking for him first and foremost. It's even if it's a slightly more difficult pass, if I can give it to him, I'm going to give it to him. That's a fantastic sign in the first game.
Did you notice, Dave, in the beginning, in the first half, is that Elneny and Partey were kind of sharing the dropping back options to be that feeding thing, and it wasn't really working because Partey didn't really get it as much as he should have. It got to Elneny, and he's not really. I mean, although he obviously with the goal that through ball on the goal was awesome, but he's not really the guy that could do what Partey did in the second.
It was very noticeable that Partey wasn't playing deep, and Elneny was, but it was that sort of fourth. It was a 4-3-3, and Saka was really wide on the left, and Elneny was wide on the right, and Partey was a bit further forward. And I think that's what caused the problems with Leno to a degree. Partey wasn't dropping deep to receive the ball, and he did so more often later on in the game. So I'm assuming Arteta had a word about that. Definitely.
Yeah, and that definitely worked better for me. Regarding the Saka comment, I found that like it seems like people have been, their defense knew how to deal with Saka and his left-footedness and his desire to want to go down the line and then to cut in. I kind of felt like he was being nullified quite a lot, and it's,
I think
he doesn't stop trying.
They were getting in each other's way a bit in the first half.
Yeah, that's true. Nketiah was...
They were taking each other's place, and Nketiah, he's been asked to do a job he's not familiar with. I didn't really understand that selection. If you're going to play him, and don't play Lacazette. I didn't see the point of playing both of them, really.
I don't get that.
Anthony McCracken just says Nketiah needs strength training. Still too easily knocked off the ball. I think that's fairly...
He's still young though, isn't he? I mean, it's a fair comment. It's a fair comment that he does need sort of beefing up a little bit, and that will come with a bit of age and a bit more maturity, really. But I mean, you've still got to remember, he's still a young lad, isn't he?
Well, two things there. At Arsenal, you only beef up when you get injured. That's obvious. Everybody comes back twice the size. Ozil did, Bellerin did, so he needs an injury to get beefed up. But I think the other thing was Nketiah. It's one of those things where it's his body shape. He's never going to be a sole striker player. He's one of those unfortunate players that he needs to be playing in a slightly different formation, I think. And he needs to be on the end of things, that fox in the box style player. He's never going to be that come deep hold up sort of player that Lacazette is. He's never going to have that body shape. And I don't think it would be a good idea for him to get that that body shape, because you'd be losing the best attributes of his game, which is that movement in the box and that creating a little bit of space, finding the gaps. And whether that's at Arsenal or whether that's someone else, whether we're ever going to play the style that will suit him entirely, I don't know. But I wouldn't believe it.
He's just a nice player to have about, Eddie. I mean, I know he's like, a lot of people have been giving him a bit of hate and that recently, but really? he's just a nice player to have around. He's something completely different to what we've got, and you need that in your lineup. You need that in your strikers, but I don't get him playing down the left. I mean, if we go back when we first saw the starting 11, was almost expecting him and Lacazette to sort of almost both start down the middle. Was almost licking our lips that we was going to get to see some form of like 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 or whatever, or 4-1-3 or whatever they bloody say. But I just don't get him playing down the left. I just don't get it.
I think his job tonight was just to give Aubameyang a rest, and he did it for 60 minutes. I think that was all about that.
Yeah, it would have been great, Gav, I think, to see actually Nketiah playing off of Lacazette, because when Lacazette did get the ball, firstly he had the touch of a pedophile today. It was like really bad. His control was bad. And when he had...
Let me make a note of that.
And when
don't put that in any blogs this week, lads.
No. And I can't spell it, so I won't.
And when he did get the ball, there was nobody near him to kind of play it, so his hold up was play. You kind of feel like Eddie would be the person who could play, kind of a Griezmann role off of somebody like Giroud if Lacazette was going to do that, with a little one-touch flick-ons and.
So to barge in on you there, right? If Martinez was fit, right?
Martinelli.
Would he have gone with Martinez down the left and played Eddie down the middle?
Martinez would have been better than him.
Martinez has gone to Aston Villa.
The bloody, Uno, mate.
He's rubbish down there.
Yeah.
I think Martinelli's. I think
that's it. They all sound the same. Do you know what I mean?
I think Martinelli walks into the team if he's fit, but I think I don't think we've got to worry about that for a few weeks yet.
So do you put Martinelli on the left then and Aubameyang down the middle? Dave?
Well, I think he's I think he's waiting to see what happens with Partey and what formation he can play that allows Aubameyang to play down the middle. At the moment, it's working. Aubameyang playing down the left, and if it's working, there's no need to fix it. But I think long term, I think we'd all like to see Aubameyang playing in the middle. But he can't. I don't want him playing in the middle in the Lacazette role. That's the thing. You need to have the tools and providers permission. And this is this age-old argument about we haven't got creativity without Ozil at the side. Blah blah blah. We'll just have to wait and see how he's going to position the players around him. And when that's Martinelli's fit and Partey's in the side and Pepe's firing and Saka's firing, that's four pretty creative players. But what we haven't had is them all put together, and we certainly haven't had them all playing well together. I mean, your comment about Pepe, okay, finally he hit a superb cross for the equaliser, but he literally can't beat the first man. Why he's still taking the odd free kick, I've no idea. He scored 2 free kicks last year, and every single dead ball situation since has been woeful.
Yeah, he wasn't great tonight. It's hard to watch a player like that and to make any kind of comments on Twitter, because obviously you just get your head ripped off. There's always like an agenda, but there are games where you can look at a player and say, man, it's just not working.
However much Ralstonelli overspent on him, and we can talk about that. It's old news. Nobody wants a club to spend £72 million on that plan not to perform. There's no Arsenal fan who should have an agenda against Pepe, but you have to take the price tag away and judge on the performances. And on the performances right now, he isn't necessarily, for me, a first choice starter. Right. Much as I want.
He's the first decent ball that he played all evening was for the goal.
Yeah,
and that was a kind of just a ball into the box. It wasn't fantastic for me. Luiz's header was what was fantastic to rise out of that group of players.
Comment come in from one of our writers, Gambino, there about Nelson. I totally agree. I thought I didn't necessarily think Nelson would start, but I think he could have made that change a lot earlier. I think he could have taken Nketiah off and given Nelson a run. Obviously, he felt he needed to bring Aubameyang on, but I agree with Gambino. I think Nelson deserved more minutes tonight, and he must be very frustrated.
We've got Mike McDonald about to join us. I'm going to add him to the stream.
Okie dokie.
Here he comes. There he is.
There he is.
Big Mike.
Good evening.
Good evening. Celebration. Spring water.
That was a game that definitely.
I'm drinking coffee as well. So.
Yeah. Is it only me? Is it only me that's having a beer? Hold on. Has Paul got his goldfish bowl?
No, I don't. I'm on a fast because I have to lose some lockdown kilograms. So I'm drinking water and quite a lot of it too.
I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed and disgusted by all of you.
We don't even know if you're drinking beer. You might just be showing off and pretending you are because we can't see you. So, there you go.
Old Gab is incognito as normal. In fact, Mick says, shit, Gab, you've been on the sauce.
I'll tell you who we haven't spoken about yet. Gabriel, every game he gets better, doesn't he? I just don't know who's going to be the partner long term if we're going to play 4 at the back. I love David Luiz, but I'm still not convinced that's a partnership in the back 4 long term. What do you think, Mike?
What about
whether Luiz whether that's a partnership long term in a 4?
Yeah. I would stay with Luiz right now. He's doing well. He's playing well.
In a 4, you would long term. I'm talking about not right now. I'm talking about long. If we go to back 4 long term.
Yeah. I would go. Well, I mean, the hope is for Saliba, but it doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon. In the meantime, I'm a big fan of Callum Chambers myself, and I can't ignore that Mustafi played well after the restart. But I would stick with David Luiz. I don't think we need to necessarily sign anybody because that would just kill Saliba.
No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah. We've got about 400 centre-backs anyway, haven't we? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But no, I'm diving in here. My Chelsea mate, my one Chelsea mate, when we signed Luiz, I said, well, what do you reckon? He said, just don't play him in a back 4. Just don't play him as part of a two-man centre-back.
Most Chelsea fans say the same.
Do you know what I mean? And he's gonna as much as he's our most experienced centre back and blah blah blah. No, I'm not having Luiz in a 4-4-2. It's just gonna be a ricket every game.
Well, there you go.
I agree. Much as I like him, I do agree. Right now, yes. In a month's time, when everyone's fit, no. For me.
Right.
Bear with me, callers.
Charlie reckons Bellerin deserves some credit, and I agree. I mean, when he came on, well, actually, that first bunch of substitutes transformed us from, something like Valium FC into something a little bit more proactive.
They say
we just weren't getting at them, was we? We just weren't getting at their back line. So we needed, and them 2 subs. They both done exactly what they were supposed to do, which is to sort of attack the full-backs and get the balls in the box. It's perfect. Perfection by us.
I don't attach any blame to Cedric. I think he had quite a solid game. I just don't think there's an understanding with Cedric and Pepe. They haven't had much time together. I don't think that was. I mean, obviously Arteta had a word towards the end of the first half, and it got a bit better. I don't think Cedric did a lot wrong. He started the game quite well, but Bellerin's just a different level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Freddie Mercury, as I like to call him these days.
Yeah. Bellerin's apparently, he's been saying that he's been working after training individually with his attacking game. And I think it shows. The thing that bugged me for years with Bellerin was he would go down the wing, receive the ball and pass it backwards, and go down the wing and receive the ball and pass it backwards. And there was
I think that was a Wenger instruction rather than a Bellerin problem.
Yeah, but now there seems to be more adventure in his game, and he made a difference tonight. He made a difference against, was it Sheffield United? The ball cross that set up the goal there. So there's an improvement there. Yeah.
There's a comment on El Neni. I agree with that. I don't agree with the sentiment he's underrated because he's Egyptian. I do think he's underrated by Arsenal supporters. And you saw Karen Carney said it in commentary. She's been super impressed with him this season. He hasn't done anything wrong, and people will talk about the creativity, and then occasionally you'll get that ball for the winning goal. It's absolutely slide rule.
Yeah, I think that's the thing though, Dave, isn't it? With El Neni, he rarely does anything wrong. But then the question is, how much does he do not right? Because if he's not doing anything wrong, he's doing everything right. But it's that how much adventure do you want from him versus he just offers technical stability and ball retention, doesn't he?
And the occasional equalizer. You know what, Mike? Last week we spoke about the breakdown between the midfield and the front four. Let's call it that. We're playing out of the back. Well, we were playing out of the back better. We didn't tonight. We'll discuss that later, I'm sure. But I found that when our midfield did reach our front four, which was difficult because the movement was they were pretty much flat on the shoulders of all the defense, especially in the first half. And it seemed that any time a ball was pinged through to them in the first half, they did that first touch, back pass, back all the way back to the defense, instead of having the kind of awareness of going like, oh, if I drop a shoulder, let this go through, turn, makes and actually try and progress with it. I think chances were there. It just seems like, it's a lack of awareness of the space behind you.
Or a lack of confidence, maybe.
Confidence, that's true. Like the risk taking element. It's like it's a low risk, very high boredom kind of style of play that we were in the first half. That's how I saw it anyway. What do you reckon?
You hit the nail on the head, though, Paul. And Dave's point could be the answer to the problem. It could be confidence. But, you're playing Rapid Vienna and it's the Europa League. If you lose or draw, it's not the end of the world. You wouldn't think that confidence would be that big of an issue tonight because not that much riding on it. I just think that pre the first goal, I suppose, or those substitutions, I don't know what the time exactly was, but there's such a lack of risk and adventure, as you say, Paul, from Arsenal in general. It's very robotic, I find. And to me, it looks like a game of keep away. I wrote in my notes for my blog later, did they, Rapid Vienna, have a goalkeeper? Of course, I'm being sarcastic, but what on earth did that guy do for an hour? I didn't know who he was, what he looked like. It looks like you were playing keep away.
It's like Petr Cech, if you want to know.
I'm not sure what he looked like, that guy, because we get the ball, we play keep away in 2/3 of the field, and it gets in the final third, as you say, Paul, and it goes backwards as if there's no goal and it's just a grid. Yeah,
but Mike, is that down, right? So the midfielders not picking the pass, right? Or is it down to the attackers not making the runs?
I think it's both. I think it's more our attack, at least tonight, the movement was it was delayed at best and not intelligent. And then when they're making runs ordinarily with the higher line in previous games, our midfielders are not finding those Aubameyang runs, for example. So there's all kinds of different issues, I think. Yeah.
I think Nketiah, for whatever reason, is not. He wasn't comfortable on the left, and it's different runs. If you're playing up front on the left, it's different runs than if you're playing through the middle. Aubameyang's used to running from left in, and Nketiah's used to curving his run out. Lacazette just doesn't make runs. So there was. I don't know what Karen Carney was watching, which she said, "Oh, that great ball over the top." Lacazette's pacing behind. I'm thinking, which player is she watching? Which pace? When's Lacazette last show pacing behind? I mean, it wasn't for Arsenal. It must be for Lyon. I've never seen. He's a great hold-up player. He's instinctive in the box when he's on song, but making runs in behind, I'm not sure.
No,
that's his game.
Yeah, well, Nketiah's been used a couple of times, hasn't he, out wide, and it hasn't worked. And I don't know if, there has to be an element of trust, and you've got to give something a go longer than 95 minutes. I get that, but I don't know if you guys have talked about Nelson. I don't know. Every time I watch Nelson, he either has a pretty decent cameo or a really good hour when he's allowed to play that long.
We just said before you arrived that we were surprised. I was saying I was surprised he didn't get on earlier today.
He keeps vanishing, doesn't he? And he's not allowed back. So I don't understand why he wasn't given a shot tonight. Made no sense.
It ties in with the Nketiah point though, because I can't remember. It was someone on one of our writers wrote on Gunners Town that, or maybe even I did actually. But Nketiah plays for England. He plays like Man City play with two wide men who are going to get to the byline and cut the ball back. Yeah, that's right. Nketiah needs to be coming onto the ball in the 6-yard box, and that's his game. And you don't score 14 goals for England 21s unless you're pretty good at that game. But it's not our style. But it could be. It could be. We've got the players to play like that. We've got the wide men. We've got Nelson. We've got Saka that can beat a man. We've got Martinelli can beat a man. We've got Pepe that can beat a man and get to the byline and pull it back. But we don't do it very often, and I don't really know why. I wish we did.
Yeah, I think we did towards the end of last season. I felt like Saka, Kolasinac, like a few of those players when we were playing, we did have some like a series of games where I feel like I remember them like there being these amazing crosses, like coming in from the left. Tierney might have been doing some of them.
But it's our fullbacks rather than our wingers, isn't it?
Yeah.
I have just seen the most ridiculous red card I think I've ever seen. I'm not sure. I'm just having a look on the telly whether it's.
Why are you still here then? I'm still holding up at you.
Oh, don't! I know. A fella's right. It's the hold on. What game?
I hope you're not watching the Tottenham game, Gavin. You're not going to say it publicly if you are.
What's that?
You're not going to say you're watching the Tottenham game on an Arsenal.
No, I'm watching Sparta Prague versus Lille. Right, and this fella's he's running. The attacker's running into the box. He's tried to stop. And he's skidded, took out the goalkeeper, and he's got a card. And he's I think it might have been his second yellow, and he's now off. It's the most ridiculous sending off I've ever seen. Anyway, go on. Where were we?
We were Nick Nketiah.
I digress.
The Nketiah thing, I agree that he is he's a 6-yard box finisher, but Arsenal centre forward plays almost the opposite way. He has to come back towards the box, play the false 9, hold it up, and so then his opportunities to get all the way into the 6-yard box are going to be hard because he's about 30, 40 yards from the 6-yard box as we start to go forward and develop the attack. So I think Dave makes a great point. Lacazette is better with his back to goal than what Nketiah is, and then other way around, if you want to play a different way and get balls cut in from the wings in, and Nketiah is significantly better than Lacazette. But I think people label them as being similar, but I think they're almost opposite in that.
I think if we follow that point logically on, what was working well at the end of last season and the beginning of this season was Lacazette runs the opposition into the ground for 70 minutes. Then you bring in Nketiah on. It worked against West Ham. It worked this season. And that's when we should change our style of play. If we're going to play with that hold-up play, wear them down. Lacazette's done his job, then bring Nketiah on, and then bomb on, get the crosses into the box. Almost have two styles of play, one for 60 minutes, 70 minutes, and one for 20 or 30 minutes. And I think that would work really well, and then utilise both of them. And I'm sure Nketiah at 21, if he's playing every week in the Premier League, albeit not starting, he's going to be happy with that at this stage of his career. That's going to be great use of his talent, I think.
Yeah.
And obviously bring Martinelli into that equation, and we've got a lot of options. Let's talk about Leno for a little bit. What did you think?
Oh, do we have to?
Yeah, let's talk about it. This is a pub after all. It's the kind of thing we've got to talk about.
It's been coming, Paul, hasn't it? Hasn't it been coming? He looks very stiff to me when he gets the ball at his feet. Too vertical, too stiff, too delayed. He hasn't made his mind up what his options are. He wants to take a touch and then look at his options. Well, in this day and age where people are pressing you, you've got 1 second. You've got to not only...
Granit Xhaka or Bernd Leno there?
Well... stick either of them in the goal. No problem.
Right, needs stages, doesn't know what he's going to do, needs to take a touch. Oh, Bernd Leno, sorry.
Maybe Ozil could play in goal.
Yeah.
I think that's harsh, I think he, I think we all knew that Martinez was better with his feet, but I think Leno's looked pretty solid and confident. That's the first time that that I think I've been genuinely worried. I mean, and he was obviously lost confidence after the mistake, but I don't think that I haven't felt that this season. Have you guys? Have you really felt
it was just this. It was just this game. I think he's I think he's pulled off some good saves. I've even got him as my header on Twitter. So he's removed Lacazette from up there. So that must be a good thing.
I think it must make a difference, though. You know, I've never played in goal, you know, in any serious football, but it must make a difference when you're so used all season you played behind a back three and suddenly you're playing behind a back two. And it must make a difference. It must make a difference in the positioning, the two centre-backs going wide, but there's always a central option and two options. Suddenly you've got two options, and maybe if they're not quite the right angle, it's going to make a difference when normally you've been used to having three for the last 2 months.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I like what Rich says in the chat there about his presence, the communication. I think that has been an issue. I did notice tonight, on three occasions, I made a note for my writings later that I heard Leno 3 times tell El Neni twice and Partey once to turn. And I know that seems so elementary, but that's one of the biggest problems in the Arsenal team is that our players are too willing to get it and give it straight back to the defence, and he would tell them to turn. So
exactly.
Thomas Partey was actually playing forward, but a lot of that was coming from Leno. I heard him talking to him.
I'd say it was interesting that as well is if you remember going back a few years when we had Santi in that position, because when you've got a 2-footed player, when you're being pressed, they don't know which way Santi's going to turn.
Exactly.
And it's so pathetic that in modern football, most of our top players are 1-footed.
Amen.
And I noticed tonight, I'm not saying I've noticed it before, and I'm not saying he should play every week, but El Neni was passing it neatly across curved passes with his left foot across the other side of the pitch from the right. On many occasions, I don't see Ceballos do it. I don't see Xhaka do it. They're 1-footed players. I think Partey's a 2-footed player, and I think El Neni's a 2-footed player. And that makes a difference when you're playing, when you're receiving the ball, you know, facing your own keeper. And it's a small thing in one sense, but it's a massive thing in another sense.
Yeah, I tell you who's the most 1-footed player on our team is Kieran Tierney. Yeah, he really is. And, of course, he's good with that foot, but he uses when he's dribbling, it's inside, outside, left foot, and you think, there's a ball with his right foot. It's on it. He won't do it.
Yeah, so if a defender stops the channel along the line for Tierney, okay, and he's only got the chance to then put it across his body and pass right to, like you said, the obvious pass 2 yards away. He can't. He's got to do a full 180, dribble.
Backward.
And Bellerin kind of has to do that too, to a point. He almost fell over
less
the ball.
Of an issue at fullback than it is if you're in receiving the ball in the middle.
Back to the keepers, lads.
Yeah.
Back to the keepers, lads. Why did we have 2 keepers on the bench?
Good point.
I mean, we was chatting. Like I say, I'm sure everybody's had a chat about this before the game. Right now, it's either that's the Arteta's squad, and they're only them were sort of fully fit or able to play, so he's decided to take every able body with him, or he's just trying to get both the sub keepers involved, and he hasn't quite made his mind up who's going to be the number 2.
Yeah, he could have taken somebody like Balogun or Aziz or somebody just the experience instead of. It would have been better. Yeah,
they just played like a couple of days ago, right? Didn't they? Balogun and Nelson. That's maybe why he didn't use Nelson as much. I don't know. Yeah.
But why take 3 keepers away with you?
Yeah.
Well, why take 3 keepers away?
You know, the question is why buy Runarsson in the first place? You know, if you're buying a second choice that you don't have faith in, where's the plan? You know, because there were so many readily available top quality keepers for 2 or 3 million who would happily have been second choice at Arsenal. You know, literally could reel them off. It was a very strange decision. It's the only decision. Well, I mean, people can debate Cedric and debate Murray. But that was just an oddball left field decision. Don't get it at all.
That's true. Gambino Snitch says he's worried how bad the reserve keeper must be not to be trusted yet. Do you think that's...
Macy's done well on loan. We've got 4 under-23 keepers, all of whom are rated by the club. It's just a very strange decision.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a really weird one, that. And maybe the plan, guys, is that he'll play the back end of the Europa League, because if you look at the selections across the board, Carabao Cup as well, Arteta wants to, put his first strong foot forward and play first teamers. And so Runnarsson's not the only one not getting a game, is my point.
Yeah, I think with the Europa League though, hopefully, we'll get 3 games out of the way, 3 wins, and then we'll see a lot of the kids.
Yeah,
like Wenger used to do. I mean, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it in the Champions League, but in the Europa League, we're good enough. Our kids are good enough to beat Dundalk's first team. Let's face it, it should be. So, hopefully, we'll get 3 games. Nice, famous last words. We'll get 3 games out of the way. We'll have 9 points, and then we might see Aziz, and we might see some of the younger players and Balogun and so forth, which would be really exciting. So,
yeah, that'd be great to see.
Fingers crossed.
It is a little worrying that there have been a few games, and there were a few obviously in last season under Arteta where it just seemed like stuff wasn't clicking, and he has left substitutes to kind of a bit late. It seems sometimes he seems he doesn't want to make early subs. Today he made those subs. I felt they could have been made a lot earlier. In fact, I was surprised he didn't make one at halftime. So
I thought Nketiah would go at halftime.
Yeah, I mean, it was Eddie, wasn't it? He was already on a booking, so I didn't understand why he stayed on as long as he did, especially as it just weren't working. It just weren't working for him down the left. So I mean, either he had to take Lacazette off and push him in the middle, or take him off, and it was a weird one. But again, we've got to remember that Arteta is still learning. He's still young. He's still learning the job. He's still learning his in-game management. And all right, he's got fellas around him that he trusts, and I couldn't really say a bad word against anybody else of his backroom staff at the moment. They all seem decent fellas. They all seem like they're giving him good advice, which he needs. But he is still learning, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? We've got to bear with him like we're bearing with Saka every now and then. Do you know what I mean?
If that was a Premier League game, I think Eddie would have been sent off tonight because there was an elbow, wasn't there, early in the second half.
I said it in the WhatsApp group, didn't I? Yeah. I said he should have gone.
I felt Partey was unlucky to get that first yellow card because it was quite funny in the replay. You saw that he hits him with a flat arm, but then you saw the next 5 steps that he took. He had exactly the same running style. It was just his, the octopus kind of.
I'll tell you what's going to be interesting. I mean, now we've had he's had his full 90 minutes. We know that Partey's going to play against Leicester. It's going to be so fascinating to see who's selected with him. It really is. I mean, I couldn't call it. Obviously, we know it's now not going to be Elneny because he's played 90 minutes tonight. So is it going to be Ceballos? Is it going to be Xhaka? Where's your money, boys?
Well, I mean,
is it going to be both of them?
Yeah, could be
potential. It
could be dictated by injury too, because Ceballos is injured. Am I right there? Allegedly.
Oh, he said no. They said he's not been risked tonight, but he should be okay for Sunday. Yeah, just a sore ankle.
And how bad is Williams' injury? It's a calf injury, right?
But that wouldn't affect who plays in midfield, would it necessarily?
No. I was just talking about injuries because just that's what.
Hey, what do you guys think about Denis Ceballos playing in a 3 as the anchor, the defensive midfielder? Because I know he's not a defensive player and he has no pace, but his defensive game, his defensive numbers and output have significantly increased. And of course, you have a choice, don't you, whether you want to have a ball player in that position or a defensive player. Ideally, you want both. And to me, he's definitely a ball player, and his defensive game has improved. So I'd be interested in having him as the defensive anchor, just to try it with Partey to his right, giving him more of a box-to-box role. And then you've got other options. I'm a huge fan of Ainsley Maitland-Niles playing as the third midfielder. But and then you've got Xhaka you could use out there. What do you think about Ceballos, first of all, sitting?
I think at the end of last season, he did that role. I mean, in different formation, but he was the deeper of the two. And his interception and tackles was the highest from lockdown to the end of the season. His interceptions were the highest in the Premier League. So he reads the game well. So it's very much like Arteta when he moved back to that role. You have a ball player who anticipates and reads the game. So I've got no problem with Ceballos in that role. I'd love to see Ainsley Maitland-Niles play as well. I'm interested to see if he's as wedded to Xhaka as most of our fan base think he is.
Yeah.
Because I've never known, with the exception of possibly Ozil, and I wouldn't even necessarily include Ozil, Xhaka's been at the club 5 years. It's literally still 50-50 on him. And for a player to still be 50-50 in the fan base after 5 years, for me, is he really good enough to play for Arsenal? If half the fan base don't think he offers anything and half the fan base think we're rubbish without him, that's so strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Gav, Marmite has been around for 78 years or something. People are still divided on that.
Yeah. To me, with Granit Xhaka, Dave, it's all about the fact that Granit Xhaka has a ceiling. I don't see, maybe El Neni does too, but he's not in this conversation. But most players, you'd hope, don't really have that ceiling, and you see them improving. I think Granit Xhaka is as good as he's going to be, and so we have to put him in a position where his strengths are exhibited and his weaknesses are not. But I sway back and forth with him, but I always see that ceiling with him, and I don't see improvement. I see a player who plays very close to his ceiling, hence why he starts all the time, but he's not pushing his ceiling.
Yeah. So, going back to Ceballos.
Yeah, but sorry, just finish on Xhaka. The reason why he is favoured by so many and why he has been in the side is because his passing range is better than anyone else we've had. The question is, having seen Partey in an Arsenal shirt, a lot of people think, crikey, this guy's got a passing range, short, long, and it may be that's the thing that we've kept Xhaka in the side for, because he's the best passer. And if we have someone else who's as good as us, as good as that, maybe we don't need him. Sorry, Gav, you were going to say about Ceballos.
Yeah. Sorry, no, I was just going back to the original thing about Ceballos, and I mean, when we're playing lower division teams or teams in Europa, I can't see no problem with having him. I mean, I call it the quarterback role, Mike. Do you know what I mean? I'm going all Americanisms on this, right? I don't mind him being the first receiver with the ball to turn and to pass it on to somebody else, but when we're playing against teams where we need a little bit more creativity, that's when I'd like to see him further up the pitch. Do you know what I mean? I'd like to see him where Lacazette generally picks the ball up. That's where I'd like Ceballos to be picking the ball up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, we've never really given him a stretch of games at an advanced position, so it's sort of hard to know what he's capable of. But he's a multi-touch player. He likes to be on the ball, doesn't he? Want to get it, give it back, get it back. But maybe he could be a connector. We don't really have connection up front. There's no 1-2s or those kind of connections up front. But maybe he could be somebody that could get it and give it in the final third, because that's something that could open the attack.
I mean, he always looks to go forwards to me. Do you know what I mean? Always looks to go forwards, and obviously with Partey as well, who also, I mean, going on tonight, I don't remember too many passes that went directly backwards. He done a few that was sort of slightly to behind, going out wide, but he's another one. We've finally got a couple of midfielders that actually want to push the ball forwards every time they get it, and I think going back to what you were saying, Dave, about why Xhaka splits the fan base, is because too often he's looking for the easy ball going backwards.
Yeah.
He's looking to not make the mistake as opposed to taking the risk. And we want to see a bit more risk when we're holding the ball.
What I did notice, I agree with that, Gav, is Partey tonight. He was really, really good at receiving the ball and avoiding danger. Like seeing the danger, and you think, oh, there's somebody pressing him, and he gets his way out of the press and turns it into an attack really quickly. But the other thing I noticed is that he was picking passes that were like would generally have been classed riskier by what our midfield normally does. So he finds a smaller gap and he pings it right to the person's foot. Unfortunately, our forwards it wasn't sticking. Like it bounced off them half the time, but he was
when he drilled it into Lacazette, it was a brilliant pass.
He was nailing those passes. Yeah. I mean, just
can't stop him.
And if we can start feeding off of that and actually start using it, that'd be great. Because then with Luiz's, he used to play these great long balls over the top, but he hasn't really done that much. He did one tonight, but not as often as he normally does. But if we've got those options to the feet and over the top, then we can bring all of our front people into the game, because some of them don't like it, to their feet, and some, they want to run onto it. But some are better, getting the ball to feet. So
it's just options. I mean, for me, it's if he's playing three in the middle. I mean, for me, he's got to go with Partey, Xhaka, and Ceballos. That would be my first choice three. whether or not Ceballos starts in front of them two or behind them two would depend on who the opposition is.
Yeah,
But that would be my three.
I find it. Might have said that before the season. Right now, I find it really difficult to envisage a first choice 11 which doesn't have Bukayo Saka in it. He's easily our most threatening player outside of Aubameyang. He makes things happen. He doesn't lose the ball in tight spaces, and he's creative. I don't want to be saying this about a young player that we need him in the side, but right now I do think I don't think those three together gives us enough creativity. I think we need to get Saka in the mix personally. I don't know where, I don't know what formation, whether he gets a free role behind a front three with two sitting, which is probably what I'd prefer to see. I just genuinely want to see Saka get a chance to play behind the strikers, not out wide. And that's and it may never work. I might be completely wrong, but I would love to see it.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a young player, Dave, who is put in so many different positions and is so consistent, regardless of where the coach puts him? He puts in, a 7, 8, 9, 10 out of. I've never seen it, I don't think, in my lifetime. I'm not saying he's the greatest ever, whatever, but for the fact that he's 18, 19 years of age and he's constantly moved around, he's our go-to hybrid player. His level of consistency is astonishing.
Yeah. Well, Maitland-Niles is asked to do it as well because he's 3 years old and he's played twice as many games. So yeah, it's amazing for his age.
His interviews this week have been pretty great. Just seeing, he's given a hat tip to Arteta, and how Arteta basically pointed out to him that he was letting himself down, by not, he was his own worst enemy. And I think from that point of view, that Ainsley Maitland-Niles, knowing that his future is in his own hands, you can tell now why he's putting those kind of performances in. I think he's.
Yeah, I'm with Mike. I'd love to see Ainsley given a go in midfield. I really, really would love to see that. Yeah.
So we've
got a midfield then of Partey, Saka, and Maitland-Niles.
Well, maybe in the future, you never know.
You never know. I'm just saying. It's not when you think about it, it's not too much of a bad option, really.
I've said many a time, I think this is Xhaka's last season at Arsenal.
Yeah.
We need to catch it. He's going to be, 28, 29? If we're going to sell him, he has a good year this year, we can still sell him for good money. 2 years, not so much.
Yeah.
The players we've got coming through, it really depends what we do in Ceballos, I guess, at the end of the season. But I don't think certainly only one of them is going to be here next year, maybe neither of them.
In any case, Dave, we need to find goals, and we need to have a midfielder game that was like a Cazorla, Ramsey, Ozil when he was on form, that were adding 30 or 40 goals, but between them, our five midfielders would give us like 40 goals a season that weren't just coming from the same two players. Xhaka's not ever going to give us that. Partey probably will. I think that he's going to start contributing.
I'm not sure whether ever three midfield players will give us 40 goals a season, but certainly 25.
With all of the substitutes behind you.
Altogether.
Yeah.
Altogether. Do you know, going off this subject, right? Do you know what I was thinking? When the camera was panning and the team doing their lineup and all that, right? We've got a few beasts in our team now. I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, there's a few boys in there that I go to war with. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't think we've had that for a while. If you look at Louise and do you know what I mean? And it just look, we've got height in the team. We've got boys that are well built. We've got boys with a bit of aggression. And I just thought, finally, we've not got that soft tippy tappy style that Wenger bored us with for 5 or 6 years. So I just thought it's a big sort of shift in the mentality of the club.
Yeah, I think
just by looking at the players we're buying. Do you know what I mean?
I think he was interviewed. He identified that you have to have it's a modern day midfield, and the final team has to have athletes in there. But look at two of our two big purchases, Gabriel and Partey, completely different body shape to what we've already got in athleticism. So absolutely, Gav.
I thought Wenger was highly disingenuous recently. I haven't watched many of his interviews because it's not for me. But saying, modern football is all about buying athletes, not about buying technicians. I thought, hold on a second. In 2004, you had 11 powerful athletes. Whether it was Petty and Vieira, whether it was Vieira and Gilberto, whether it was Pires, these are, with the exception of Ljungberg, every player in the team was over 6 foot and built like we built our success success on powerful athletes. Okay, they were brilliant footballers as well, but I thought that was disingenuous to say that, it's all about modern, athletes. It's not about football anymore. I thought, what? That's what you brought to us, mate. You gave us that. You gave us a team of fantastic athletes.
Yeah,
that's why we put people in the tunnel.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And I mean, you look at like Levon, Torre as well. You can add to that. Do you know what I mean? There was just a lot of powerful people that he bought, and it seems like we're slowly shifting back towards that, and it's just nice to see. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, I've got no problems with like the players like Santi Cazorla who done a tremendous job for us. But I mean, if you compare the sort of midfielders that we're buying and we've got at the moment to like clubs like Haled, do you know what I mean? It's just a different ball game now, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of the teams that are kind of
Haled was
dominating
rubbish.
the league
Like, start me on Haled, he was shit.
No, he wasn't.
The teams that are dominating, if you look at the Cities and Liverpools, they've got players. Even their small players have got beef. They've got like a doggedness about them. And I think to whether you're small or big, if you've got that kind of attitude.
What did you think on the weekend against Man City? And it's like the tactical fouling by City was at a level of Porto under Mourinho, and because it's Pep Guardiola, it's not mentioned. Every single time we got away, they pulled us back and gave away a foul. They know exactly where to do it, and nobody said Guardiola's coached them to do that, where he quite obviously has. But if that was Mourinho, we'd all be saying it. Why did Guardiola get a free pass on that? Because we're starting to do it. So that's come from Arteta, and I don't love it, but it's part of the modern game, and we shouldn't cry away from it. If we're willing to give away a free kick just inside the opposition half, I've got no problem with that. That's the modern game. So why don't we talk about it? Because Guardiola definitely coaches it. Definitely.
I think if a team gets more than, say, 3 cynical fouls in a game, I think the coach should get a yellow card, and if he gets 2 yellow cards, he should get sent off and banned for a game. You know what I mean? Because that's coming from the coaching.
Well, if it's Pep or Arteta, they have to wear an unfashionable jumper the following game.
That's right.
Exactly.
I'd go one step further. I've got a solution that everybody's going to hate, all the traditionalists, but I've always thought that a professional foul that's not a red card should be a sin bin. Is it rugby that does sin bins?
Rugby league.
Well, I think I don't know if you do 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or 20 minutes, 10. But somewhere there. For example, Fernandinho, instead of playing, he's made his career in England tactical fouling people for years and years and years. He's the sort of player, I think, he's a yellow card when he walks out of the tunnel. You know he's going to do it anyway, but it doesn't discourage them. And to me, one of the biggest problems in modern football is ruining fantastic opportunities by dishing somebody a pointless yellow card that they don't care less about when the team was on the attack. And Manchester City, like Dave says, does it constantly, but the punishment doesn't fit the crime, so that's why they keep doing it. So you have to change the punishment. Give them 20 minutes to sit.
Orange card. You're straight off for 7 minutes. Or whatever.
Yeah. There's a lot that could be learned from rugby's officiating. Honestly, I mean, everything, the transparency when there's a VAR call, for instance, in rugby, the ref will speak on the loudspeaker with a person and they will specify what it is that they're going to go and do. So, for instance, I'm awarding a goal, but I'm going to go and check if that last pass was offside and if there was a push in the back of the defender just before the guy, headed the goal in. So there's no license for VAR to go back 15 minutes and, just basically they're fishing. They go on these fishing expeditions and you see them looking at 5 or 6 different incidents that never seem to be called into question. It just needs to be more transparent. And obviously with PG, MOL, and we just don't get that. But also,
you went to public school, can't you?
So I've just seen what Mick said in the Facebook chat. We must be well up in the table in the longest in the shower league.
Can I go back to Dave's point on Xhaka being arguably in his last year? I think that's a really interesting conversation. I found a player recently who I think might take the same path as Granit Xhaka, who is at the same club that Granit Xhaka came from, who's getting rave reviews in Germany, but he's a significantly more athletic and two-way player than Granit Xhaka. And I think we need to keep an eye out for him. His name is Florian Neuhaus. He plays for Mönchengladbach as the defensive midfielder. He's a technical player. He's fantastic on the ball, and he's a destroyer as well. And you might have seen on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, there was a pass of the day or a play of the day. He was a guy that hit the ball 50 yards on the ground and split the back four, and Mönchengladbach scored in the Champions League off the back of it. But I've watched him, Neuhaus, a lot, and he's one I think we need to keep an eye on. But I'm interested in Dave's thoughts, as this is Xhaka's last year. Tobias might not return, so Arsenal are probably going to get a true DM, and this is what this guy is 6 foot tall and he's 23. So I'm sort of describing almost like the perfect player, age-wise, league-wise, height-wise, athletically. So I think he's somebody to keep an eye on. Florian Neuhaus.
I think there's people in the youth squad. I mean, Dave has been doing an amazing series with John Willow about all the Arsenal youth players.
Brilliant.
If you haven't read it, go to gunnerstown.com and read it, because it's really like a glimpse of the future. There's a thing called a Willow meter where he gives them a rating out of 20 as to how their chances of succeeding in the Arsenal first team. And there's some players going in there that, if they turn out to be as good as what Dave and John have put in the articles.
I think that's the player I'm talking about. If we get through these first 3 games, which we will, I think Miguel Aziz will feature in the Europa League in the group phases. I mean, he's a year older than Charlie, so I think Miguel Aziz has got a very good chance. The other one who may well feature is Ben Cottrell. And at the moment, he can play attacking midfield, or he can play. He's played a few times at left wing back, so they're sort of grooming him as cover. So they're the two I think may get some minutes in the latter stages of this early group phase. So Aziz and Cottrell are the two I think.
We've just got to win the next 2 games, basically, haven't we?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But the other thing, going back to the Neuhaus thing, or Shithouse, whatever his name was, but I do think you're just, it depends how much you believe in Ainsley, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because when the first time I saw Ainsley play that role, it was against Southampton in the FA Cup in 2000.
Yeah, I remember.
The midfield 3 was Jeff, René Adelaide, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Ainsley Maitland-Niles. And then we had Perez, Welbeck making his comeback, and Walcott up front. And I thought we're going to get battered because they had their first team out. And Maitland-Niles and Jeff René Adelaide ran the game.
Yep.
And Maitland-Niles just sat in front of the back 4, giving it to Jeff, giving it to Ox, putting it out wide. And I thought, crikey, we got a player here. We have got a player here. And he's had the odd game at Old Trafford where he played central midfield, and we've given him the minutes. And obviously when he's been playing the inverted fullback, he's been able to push into midfield, and you can see glimpses of the athleticism. But I just think maybe, just maybe, the fact that Arteta has faith in him, he as Mike said, he has a glimpse of what we might see there, because I think he's got it all. I really do.
He's a bit of a beast as well. Let's be honest. He's another. He ticks that box.
Well, I wrote that blog at the start of the season on Gunnerstown saying if we're going for Partey at the start of the window, if that's the player we want, then we need to keep Ainsley Maitland-Niles, because he's the closest thing we've got to Partey. And I think you need 2 players in every position. So if Partey's your number 1, Maitland-Niles is the closest thing we've got in attributes to Thomas Partey. And I still believe that.
Yeah. Amen to that. Absolutely. I remember that game vividly as well. And you're right, Dave. I think he's got everything. He's got the speed, the athleticism, the passing range. He's got the line breaking, dribbling. I think he's actually got goals in him. He's never produced that, but you see him in the final third. And I think he's just never been given a block of games to prove that he's a midfielder at Arsenal football.
Yeah, but is it like I say? I mean, when I talk to Keno's about Maitland-Niles, and I'd say, even though whatever you think of my mate Keno's, surely by his age, where he's 23, I don't know when he's 24, not that matters, but he should have a position
until he's 24.
Yeah, exactly, right. But he should have a position nailed down by now.
Yeah, but it's not his fault. It's not his fault.
No, it's not his fault. I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying, is it? I mean, I thought he was going to play tonight. I thought he's odds on to start tonight, and he didn't. But I think really, if he might have to take a step back and completely learn and specialise in one position. Well, because the fact that he's coming on as utility here, there, and everywhere, all right, that's good enough to get in the England team, right? But ain't necessarily good enough to get in the Arsenal team.
Yeah, but on the other side of that, I would say he arguably has been given one position because most every time he's on the field, he plays left wing back. So I think that he just doesn't play every week, but when he does,
is he getting shoehorned in there though, Mike? Is like I say, like Eddie was tonight. I think he's just getting shoehorned in there. I don't think that's his best position.
I don't see that at all. I don't see that. I think he's shut down Adama Traore, Mo Salah, Riyad Mahrez, and then so he does the defensive part has been a huge improvement, and then he moves, as Dave said, to the inverted central midfielder, and so you've got that part of his game that you can utilise because he's a midfielder rather than a defender. I think he's been fantastic. He's just again, he's another one that just gets a run of games and then he vanishes for a few weeks. So
yeah, no, I'm not like I say. I mean, I like him. I'm not slagging him off. I'm just saying that he should really have sort of I don't think that's his natural role or natural position, and I think really by his sort of age, he should have that. We should know where his best position is, and he should know where his best position is, and he should be practicing and coming on and playing where his best position is.
It's another one of those things where the game changes because his best season, if you like, by his own admission, was when he played for Mick McCarthy at Ipswich, and they played 4-4-2, and he played right midfield. He played about 35 games that season, and that if you asked him then what's your position, he would say right midfield. You know, that no one plays 4-4-2, and right midfield doesn't exist. So the closest thing to it is the right wing back role. But Bellerin's now back on top form, and I think a lot of when there's rumours of Bellerin going, I think a lot of people thought Maitland-Niles that was going to be his position.
Yeah,
that's why we were keeping him, and obviously Bellerin's now back to somewhere near his best. So that's a tricky one for him. So he's going to be an understudy in midfield and an understudy at left back. He'll get a lot of games, but I don't think he's going to nail a position this season.
That would be a really interesting question for Arteta, though, wouldn't it? If you had a chance to ask him a question, I'd love to ask him if Ainsley Maitland-Niles will ever be given a run of games as a midfielder at Arsenal. I'd be fascinated by his answer there.
I think the League Cup going to sort of one game and all crammed hasn't helped the young players this season. You know, in the past that was the competition where we saw, two legs, in the later stages, a lot of games leading up to the semi-finals, and now it's all compressed and we're already in the semi-finals. We played 3 games and we're in the semi-finals in a week. So, and that's the time when we were deciding who's going to loan and who we're not going to loan of the youngsters. So normally those games would start when the window's finished, and we'd know which youngsters we had left, and they'd all get game time in the League Cup. We haven't had that this season, so I think that's a tricky.
Yeah, we've had strong opponents too, haven't we, in the League Cup?
Yeah.
So I have a weirdo season.
I have a hypothetical for you guys. If we didn't have Pepe, if we hadn't have signed him, or he wasn't in the equation, how would you line up this team? Would you end up, putting Willian in there, because we've got him, or is there another way of utilizing the players that we have?
Well, if everyone's fair, I'd have Martinelli right now. I'd have Martinelli, Saka, and Aubameyang as long as we got the creativity behind them. But I don't at the moment. I'd rather see Saka behind. It's a good question whether Reece Nelson would have had a run of games all last season. We might know a different Reece Nelson by now. He definitely is a confidence player. He needs a run of games, as Mike said. But I still think there's a player in Pepe. Still think there's a player in there. But don't know. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, I'll pick that one up, and I'll say that there's just too many question marks to be absolutely sure. There's a massive question mark over Reece Nelson because the guy was Arsenal's, until this new crop's come along, he was Arsenal's best academy prospect for a while, wasn't he? Big question mark there. Not so much of a question mark over Martinelli. He's just been out injured. Smith Rowe, big question mark every time that guy, opportunity, a game open up for him. He's injured again, so there's a question mark. Question mark over Willian. He should be the man. He should grab that opportunity and run with it. But he's played well once this season and been mediocre at best in the other. You could play Saka on that side, as Dave said. Saka would probably play right if you did Dave's front three. Maybe Martinelli on the left and Aubameyang in the middle. That would be worth looking at because Saka plays well everywhere he plays. I'd like to see, like Dave said, Saka drift as well. And if you had Martinelli on the left, you wouldn't want him to be a playmaker. to maybe Saka drifting, Martinelli on the left, and Aubameyang in the middle?
Well, what they do at Villa now is, if you noticed the Villa this season, and obviously they're flying, they've given Grealish a free roll from the left, like Chelsea did with Hazard. So they're playing three midfielders. Grealish isn't one of the three midfielders. Grealish is normally starting left wing. He's obviously not a left winger, and he can go wherever he wants. That's what you can do with Saka.
I
If
think
you've got
Barkley
Martinelli and Aubameyang, as the other two, Saka's the one that basically just goes to where, you can go where you want, mate. Go and create, go and cause damage like Grealish does. He's not playing in the midfield three this season for Villa. He's playing left wing.
I think Barkley seems to have also transformed that. And he and Grealish have got a, I think he's unlocked something where it's not always Grealish.
They're a pair of horrible bastards, aren't they? But together they're going to make a nice little duo. Let's be honest.
That's a great gamble. That's a great gamble by Dean Smith. Barkley's always been a good player. He's just not been a good player week in, week out.
And their goalie's pretty good too.
Anyway, listen, guys. I think
that's it. We're done.
You want to carry on without me and talk about it on my back? But,
I think we're done. I'm done.
I think Gary Clark has just said that BBC 4 is showing she wore a yellow ribbon. It's just started right now.
On Twitter at the weekend. They had it on BBC 2 at the weekend. I watched the whole film. Brilliant. John Wayne.
Okay.
Classic.
Well, it's just started on
absolutely
BBC
brilliant
4.
film.
That's where the song comes from. That's where the song comes from.
Yeah.
Film.
Right. Well, folks, it's been awesome having you. I'm not going to try and play the video because I'll make a fool of myself.
No, go on, one job. Go on, you've only got one job. You've only got one job. Go on, you can do it.
Fine. No, I'm going to do it.
We got double Paul. We got two jobs.
Double Paul. Gav, say something so I can cut you off.
Well, you're still recording.
I know it's still recording.
God, look, and there's two of you. And I'm not seeing double.
Both of us are going now. The broadcast is ending in 3. The camera. 2, 1.